Module 1, Section 1, objectives this time are going to be 8 and 9. For objective 1.1.8, we're going to be rounding whole numbers to a given place value. So rounding basically is the process of approximating a number. So they give you a number and you say, oh, that's about blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's rounding. Now this process of rounding here that they give you, these 4 steps, those are great, but I don't want to take time on this page to read them, so we're just going to go through them as we do the next problems. Example 15. So this says round to the given place number, and so we're rounding this first one to the tens place. So the first thing they did was found out the number in the tens place, and they put it in bold. Okay, now you're looking at the number after it, so the underlying number, to see what to round to. The number after the place that you want to round to is what you use to determine. So that underlined 4 right here, if that number is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, I'm going to write this down at the bottom. Okay, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, these round up. And all of the other 5 numbers, so 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, round down. Okay, now because this is a 4, it's going to round down. And to do that, all you do is leave the 3 alone, and you change every number after it to a 0. So to go from a 34 to a 30 actually went down by 4 numbers. So that is rounding down. Okay. Okay, let me take a second and explain what rounding is. Okay, so, whoops, can't draw with a little light, can I? Okay, so we have a number line, and let's say we're counting by tens. So we have 10, 20, 30, etc., right? Now this would be if we're rounding to the nearest 10, because all we care about are the numbers that are multiples of 10. So if I had a number, doesn't matter what it is even, that's right here, and I wanted to round that number to the nearest 10, what that means is which of these 2 numbers is it closest to. So it's closest to the 20, so it would round down to 20. So what was that original number? Let's find out what it could be. So let's see, here would be halfway, that would be 25. So let's say that was 23. And now let's go through the process that we just did, okay? So 23, and I want to round it to the nearest tens place. So I look at the number after it. If 3 is a 0, 1, 2, or 3, it's going to round down. And to do that, you leave this number how it is. You replace the 3 with a 20. And that's it. Okay, so you're trying to figure out which number it's closest to if you count by the value you're given. So another one, let's say I have the number 438, and I want to round to the tens place. Okay, so counting by tens on my number line this time because it's the tens place, just like I did on the last one. But here, let's do, say this is 420, 430, 440. We're only counting by tens. So these are the only numbers that you could have as a possible answer. We're going to round to the nearest 10. Okay, so 438 is somewhere in this section, right, between 30 and 40. And it's going to be over here someplace closer to the 40. So it's obviously closer to this than it is to that. So our answer should be 440. So let's go through the process. I'm going to put it below the number line here. So 438, we want to round to the tens place. So let's look at the 8. 8 is higher than 5, which means it's more than halfway to the next number. So we're going to add 1 to the 3, and everything after it is a 0. And sure enough, we get 440. So if we're counting by bigger numbers, or rounding to bigger numbers rather, let's say, I'm just making this up as I go, so who knows what we're going to get. Say the nearest 1,000. Okay, they use bold and underline. I use underlines and arrows. So that's what I fell back to, I'm sorry. So we're rounding to the thousands place, which means we want to look at the 5 here to see whether it rounds up or down. So if we're looking at a number line, and I'm going to cut it way down, so this is 3,000, or 347,000. There we go. Okay, a little bit bigger number, so it looks more like the ones that they had. And let's say we're talking about the thousands place. We want to round it to the thousands. Okay, now the way I do it, I don't use their underlining and bold method. I find the number that's in the thousands place, and I look at the number right after it. Okay, so if I were to put this on a number line, and I'm going to simplify the number line a little bit, and I had 314,000 on this side, and on this other side, see, I start at 314,000, and then I have 726 more. So I'm going to be going over this way farther, right? So this would be 315,000, counting by thousands. Okay, so let's see if I can erase this without erasing everything else. Okay, so the 726 is in this space here someplace. Is it closer to the 314 or closer to the 315? The 7 here will tell us. If it's a 5, it's exactly halfway. And 5s just round up. So we have a 6 and a 7, an 8 and a 9. 7 is further, right? So 7 is going to round up. Now these are hundreds, by the way. So 700, 800, 900. So 700 rounds up. It's closer to the next highest number than the lowest number. So the answer to this one would be 315,000. Okay, let's use that same number again and round it to a different spot. Let's say to the 100,000s. So first thing we need to do is find the number that is in the 100,000s place. Okay, and that would be the 3. So now you look at the number after 3, and since 1 rounds down, you are going to leave the 3 exactly how it is and replace everything else with zeros. Okay, so that's your answer, rounding it to the nearest 100,000. Okay, now let's go back and do the ones that they had. Okay, so we're going to go back to using, this is on B. We're going to use their bold underline method. I don't like bolding something by writing it, so that's why I use the underlines and the arrows. Okay, so we need to find a number that is in the 10,000s place. So that's the 6. And you look for the number after the 6. It's a 9, and 9s round up. So we're going to add 1 to the 6, and everything else becomes zeros. So 470,000. Okay, and they explain how to do that down here. All right, let's go over on the other side and do ours. Okay, C. Round that big number to the nearest 1,000. So what number is in the thousands place? Okay, now I'm going to underline it and then look at the number right after. So the 1. 0's in the thousands place, and the digit right after it is a 1. So since a 1 is a low number, it's going to round down. So that means up here we're going to do 5, 7, leave the 0 alone, and replace everything else with zeros. So that's your answer right there. Now, 5,700 is less than 5,700, 183. So we did round it down, didn't we? All right, D, round it to the nearest 100. So the 3 is in the hundreds place. We look at the 6 to figure out whether it rounds up or down. Since 6 is in the larger half of the numbers in between, it's going to round up. So that means we're going to do the 89 and then round the 3 up to a 4, 0, 0. Okay, rounding to the hundreds place, we need to have something 100 in our answer, which we do. And the last one, we want to go to the nearest 1,000. So I'm going to round it to that 9, which means we look at the 9 after it. Okay, 9 is in the large numbers, so it rounds up. Okay, so now we want to find out, rounding up, what to do. Okay, so you would add 1 to the 9, but that would make it a 10, right? Okay, so let me pull out a number line just so you can see what we're doing on this one. We're counting by thousands on the number line. So this would be 159,000. What comes next? If you're only counting by thousands, this is going to be 160,000, right? So the 159 came from what we see exactly, and then one higher is over here. So we start at 159,000, and then we're going to start counting towards 160,000, and we get 902 over. So that's way over here, isn't it? So we have 159,902 clear over here someplace, which is definitely closer to 160,000. So let's go back up here. When your number rounds the next number up, sometimes there's a chain reaction. Okay, so 9 has to round this 9 up, which in the situation rounds the 5 up. Okay, so 160,000 is your answer. So chain reactions are kind of fun, and they're kind of tricky, but they're always going to throw one in for you, so watch for those. Example 16 is just more of the same. Okay, just have some bigger numbers, it looks like. A little bit more complicated, but don't let it be. It's exactly the same. Okay, so 30,532,014, round it to the nearest million. So millions are the 0. So we're going to look for the number after the 0. So 5 rounds up, doesn't it? So we'll add 1 to the 0 and make everything else zeros. So 31 million. Okay, B, round it to the nearest 100. So 1 is in the hundreds place. So we're looking at the 4. And since 4 is in the lower half of the numbers, it's going to round down to 100. 127,103, round it to the nearest 10,000. 2 is in your 10,000 spot, so you're going to look at the 7 to see whether it rounds up or down. 7 is in the larger group of numbers, so it's going to round the 2 up. So we round the 2 up to a 3 and add zeros afterwards. Okay, let's do ours over on this side. So we have D rounded to the nearest 100. Okay, now I'm going to do this my way with the underlines and the arrows. So 100, whoops, that's thousands, isn't it? Here we go. Hundreds place. And I look for the number after it. So 5 is going to round up, right? Which is one of those chain reaction ones I was talking about. So the 5 rounds the 9 up, which rounds this 9 up, which makes this a 2. So 3, 2, 0, 0, 0, 0 is the next biggest 100 because of the way those 9s lined up. Okay, E, round that number to the nearest 1,000. So 9 is in the thousands place, but this time the number after it is a 4. 4 is in the lower half of the number, so it's going to round down. Okay, so to do that, you leave the underlined number exactly how it is and change everything else to zeros. So by going from 579,453 down to 579,000, we've dropped by 453 numbers. So it went down. It did round down. Remember, you're not subtracting 1 from the 9. You drop these last numbers and change them to zeros, and that rounds it down. And the last one here, F. Round this one to the nearest 100,000. So the number in the 100,000s place is the 3. So let's take a look at the 8. 8 is in the higher half of the number, so it's going to round up. So to do that, you add 1 to the underlying number. So 4, and everything afterward goes to 0, excuse me. Remember, if you're rounding to the nearest 100,000, you're counting by 100,000s. So 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, those are the only numbers that could be an answer because you want the nearest 100,000. That's what you need to count by. Okay, example 17. Find a number that satisfies the given condition. Sometimes there's going to be more than one number. So Canvas is going to be ready to accept multiple answers. You just need to get one of them. So A, we want a number that when rounded to the nearest 10 is 5,560. So it doesn't matter whether it was rounded up or rounded down, but it needs to be rounded to 5,560 for an answer. Okay, let me go down here at the bottom for a second. Let me show you. Okay. Oh, nice straight line, huh? So we're rounding to tens place. So my number line is going to count by tens. Okay. So I have 5,560 is what we want the answer to be. So the one before that would be 5,550, 5,540. Above that is 5,570. Now, none of these other numbers are really important. I just wanted you to see that we're counting by tens. Okay? All right, now, let's look in closer and see if we want it to round to the nearest 10 and end up with 5,560 as the answer. And you know that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 round down and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 round up. Okay, in this little place right before it, we got to break that into 10. And place after it, also in 10. You don't actually have to do this every time. I'm just explaining what's happening. Okay? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And up here there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So everything in here is going to round to 5,560. Stuff out on this side will round up to 5,570. Stuff here will round to 5,550. So we just need to choose a number that's in this section. Okay? So any of those numbers that would satisfy this, let's pick this one just for example. Okay, if this is 5, there's 6, 7. So this is going to be 5, 5, 5, 7. And if you look at it, it does round to 560. Okay, this number here, this is 5,563, and the 3 means it rounds down to 5,560. Okay? So on B, let me start over with this here. All right, so when it is rounded, when rounded to the nearest 100 is 600. Okay, so basically we want 600 to be our answer. The 100 before that is 500. The 100 after that is 700. We want everything that is halfway and just under halfway. So any of these numbers in here would all round to 600. Okay, so you could do 550 all the way up to 649, because 650 would round up to 700. So just be sure you choose a number in between those extremes, or the high and the low, and it'll work. Okay, so they've chosen 591, which would be somewhere up here, and they've chosen 648, which is up here, and they both are in that section, which round to 600. Okay, let's do ours. So when rounded to the nearest 10 is 470. Okay, so I need some numbers that are very close to it here or very close to it here. You don't have to choose numbers that are as far away as you can possibly get. You can choose numbers that are really close just to be safe. Okay, so I'm going to choose, if I just went 3 numbers down, okay, so this is going to be 467. Does that round to 470? So there's the tens place. 7 rounds up. Sure enough. So 467 works. What about we go this way? So we have 472. Does that round to 470? Sure enough, because the 2 makes it round down. Don't make it so difficult for yourself. All you have to do is add 1 or 2 or subtract 1 or 2. That's fine. Okay? So the last one here. So we have 6,500, and we want it rounded to the nearest 100. So our next number down on this side would be 6,400. This number would be 6,600. So we need something that is close to here or close to here. So let's say just a little bit shorter would be 6,490. And a little bit bigger would be 6,511, say. Okay. Okay, objective 9 is you're rounding whole numbers using front-end rounding. So we're going to be using what we just learned, but we're going to do it from the front end. Okay, so what does that mean? It means identify the front digit, or the number furthest to the left. It's the first number you come to in your number. So you're going to round it to the highest place value. Okay, so let's try a couple. So round using front end rounding, the highest place value is the place that the 4's in. So in this case, 10 million. Okay, so you're going to look at the number after it, which is 6. 6 rounds it up. So we're going to round the 4 up to a 5. And then everything else gets replaced by zeros. Okay, so everything else down here doesn't matter. You're just using the front number, the very first number you see. So our front number here is the 1. 4 is less than 5. 5 is your cutoff point to going up, right? So 4 rounds down, which means this number is closer to 100 than it is to 200. Just barely, but still. Okay, and C, front end rounding on this number, you're looking at the 3. The number after the 3 is a 2, so we're going to round down. We're going to leave the 3 alone and replace all of these with zeros. So we get 300,000. So the ones we're supposed to do over on our side, look at the first number and the number right after it. We're rounding to the place that the 3's in, so we're looking at the 1 after it. It doesn't even need, you don't even need to know what the place value is. You just need to know how to round. So the 3, it's in the 100,000ths place, but that's not the important part. The important part is that the 1 after it rounds it down. Okay, so if we're rounding down, you leave the 3, and you change everything else after it to zeros. So it's 300,000. Okay. Now E. Highest number, or the first number we come to is the 7. So the highest place value in this case is the 10,000ths. We're looking at the 8 to see whether it rounds up or down, and this one goes up, which means we're going to add 1 to the 7, and everything else becomes zeros. Okay, don't really even need to think as hard because everything other than the first number is a 0. If you get 2 non-zero numbers, you've done something wrong. Okay, the last one, 6 is first, so we're looking at the 5. 5 is going to round up, so the answer is 70. Okay, so like I said, if you get more than 2 numbers at the front, you've done something wrong. So for example, and I want to do front end rounding. I want to round to whatever place the 4's in. So I'm going to look at the 5. 5 rounds up. So we're going to get 500,000. Everything else afterwards is a 0. That's technically the correct answer. If you wanted to just tell somebody that you're going to round that off, I would probably say it's 450,000. However, that's just an estimate. Okay? And it's a pretty good estimate. But it's not using front end rounding. Front end rounding means you have one number and everything else is zeros. And we are done. Okay, so this is the last objective of section 1 of module 1. Okay, so your homework is going to be right there where you see the arrow. This is in your modules section. And I have closed both of these so that I can just see what we're doing. You might have these open and it'll look different. But 1.1 is your homework. So you click on this and it will open up your Lumens homework and you can do all of the problems. If you notice, there are a lot. Okay? Let's even get it bigger so you can see. There are 91 points. Okay? That doesn't mean there are 91 problems. There are 53 problems. Some of them have multiple answers. Okay? In the sections that we have just covered, 1.1.1 through 1.1.9, there are over 100 questions that we have already answered. So your homework is half of that. It shouldn't take you as long as you think, so no panicking, okay? All right, so good luck, and we'll see you with the next video.